You would have thought, chums, that these particular individuals may have learnt their lesson, but clearly not, because behind the scenes there's been another palace explosion, this time from none other than His Royal Highness Prince William, over this particular headline, which caused, shall we say, to put it mildly, ructions.
A senior palace official, direct quotes, a grand plan to finally heal the rift between Prince William and Prince Harry. It was the story that everyone wanted to believe. There was just one problem. By the time journalists contacted the palace to verify it, the very man quoted at the center of the story said he had no idea where any of it came from. Think about what that means for a moment. A supposedly exclusive, inside account of the king's deepest personal wishes, published, spread across the internet, picked up by dozens of outlets, and the person named in it is essentially saying, "That's not me." So who wrote this? Who planted it? And most importantly, why now? Today, we are pulling this story apart piece by piece, because once you understand who is involved and what their history is, the whole thing starts to look a lot less like journalism and a lot more like a carefully placed narrative, one designed to benefit a very specific person in California. Let's get into it. Over the weekend, a headline circulated claiming that King Charles's deputy private secretary, a man called Theo Reichfra, has apparently made it his personal mission to broker peace between Prince William and Prince Harry. According to the piece, this was not a casual side project. This was described as a direct reflection of how deeply His Majesty feels about the estrangement. A king who desperately wants his family whole again, using his most trusted aide to quietly rebuild what has been broken. Emotionally compelling, right? Almost too compelling. Because here is what happened next. When the palace was contacted to confirm the story, the response was immediate and unambiguous. They could not verify the quotes. They did not know where the quotes had come from. And crucially, at the time the story was published, Theo Reichfra himself appeared to have no knowledge of being the source of any of it. That single detail changes everything about how you read this story. And then, almost as quickly as it had climbed to the top of the digital news cycle, it began to disappear, quietly moved down the page, gradually buried, the kind of editorial retreat that happens when a publication knows something has gone wrong, but would rather not draw attention to the fact. If you missed it, that was entirely by design. Now we need to talk about the journalist behind this story, because this is not a neutral party with no prior involvement in the Sussex saga. This is the same writer who, during Prince Harry's privacy case against a major British newspaper group, a case involving allegations of phone hacking and unlawful information gathering, became unexpectedly central to proceedings herself. It emerged during that case that she had been in contact with Harry. The response from her corner was that any such contact happened long before she had established herself as a fully accredited journalist, that it was informal, historical, and irrelevant to the case. Perhaps. But the point is this: she has a history, a documented court-adjacent history of proximity to Harry and his world. And now she is the author of a story that, if taken at face value, paints Harry's path back into the family as something the king is actively and urgently pursuing through his most senior staff. That context matters enormously. Because what this story does, intentionally or otherwise, is shift public perception. It moves the needle from Harry burned his bridges to the palace is desperately trying to rebuild them. It repositions Harry from the person who walked away to the person everyone is working to bring back. And it does all of that using the name and supposed authority of a senior palace official who appears to have known nothing about it, what the king actually wants. Now let's be fair and honest about King Charles's position here. He is a father. Whatever has happened, the memoir, the Netflix documentary, the Oprah interview, the years of public grievance, none of that changes the biological reality. Harry is his son, and it would be both uncharitable and almost certainly inaccurate to suggest the king feels nothing when it comes to the estrangement. By all credible accounts, Charles would welcome some form of reconciliation, not a full restoration, not a return to working royal status, but a quiet, private human connection, the kind a father might have with a son he hasn't spoken to properly in years. That much is almost certainly true. But, and this is the critical distinction, there is a vast difference between a father privately wishing things were different and a monarch directing his senior staff to actively campaign for his younger son's rehabilitation. The first is entirely believable, the second is what this story was claiming, and that is where the whole thing falls apart. The palace did not confirm it, the official name did not confirm it. And within the world of royal communications, silence followed by quiet erasure is as close to a denial as you are ever likely to see. William's position, and why it is not going to change. Here is the part that no amount of careful story placement is going to alter. Prince William's position on Harry is not one of reluctant distance. It is not a wound that is slowly healing, or a grievance that a well-meaning courtier might quietly smooth over. According to sources with genuine proximity to the Prince of Wales, his position is one of absolute clarity. He will not be reconciling, not in any meaningful sense. And this is not anger. This is not bitterness in the way that people imagine it. It is something colder and more considered than that. It is the conclusion of a man who has had years to think this through, who watched his brother leave, watched his fall, be publicly attacked, watched his wife's name dragged into narratives she had no hand in, and arrived at a very clear judgment. Trust, once broken at that level, does not come back. There is a comparison that keeps surfacing in conversations about William and Harry, and it is a telling one. The Duke of Windsor, the king who abdicated, who chose a different life, who was never truly welcomed back into the heart of the institution. He remained technically family. He was never truly part of the family again. That is the model some within the palace are quietly applying to Harry. Not exile, not cruelty, just a line. A permanent, uncrossable line. And the key reason that line exists has nothing to do with Harry himself in isolation. It has everything to do with who Harry remains attached to, because the view from inside the palace, and from William in particular, is that whatever conversation you might have with Harry, you are never quite sure who that conversation is really with. The manipulation that everybody sees. Here is what makes this particular weekend story so revealing, even though, or perhaps because, it turned out to be unverifiable. It tells you exactly what the Sussex communication strategy looks like right now. With the commercial landscape shrinking, with speaking fees declining, with major media partnerships producing less than promised, the one asset that Harry and Meghan still possess is narrative, their story. And the most valuable version of that story, the one that keeps them relevant and sympathetic, is the version where the palace is the obstacle, and Harry is the one waiting patiently to come home. A story about the king's deputy secretary working night and day to bring the brothers back together? That is pure gold for that narrative. It says, the palace wants Harry back, the institution needs him. Only William's stubbornness is standing in the way. Except the palace didn't say that. The official didn't say that. And William's position is the opposite of stubbornness. It is a considered, long-standing, fully formed decision made by a man who has thought about the future of the monarchy more carefully than almost anyone alive. The story was placed, it served a purpose, and when it was challenged, it evaporated. That pattern, the leak, the narrative, the quiet retreat, is becoming a signature, and the more often it happens, the less effective it becomes. What all of this points to is actually quite simple, even if the details are complicated. The gap between Harry and the royal family is not a misunderstanding waiting to be cleared up by a well-meaning official. It is not a wound that time alone will heal. It is the result of a sequence of deliberate decisions. Decisions that were made publicly, on camera, in print, and in court, that have had permanent consequences. King Charles is a decent man who loves his son. That is probably true. Prince William is a future king who has made his calculation. That is absolutely true. And somewhere in California, a narrative is being managed with increasing desperation by people who understand that the window for relevance is narrowing, and that the most powerful card left to play is the idea that the family still wants them back. The palace's silence on this story was the most eloquent thing they could have said. There it is, the story that fell apart before it even had time to settle, and what it tells us about where things really stand between Harry, William, and the king. Now, I want your take. Do you think there is any realistic path to reconciliation here? Or has too much been said and done for this family to ever find its way back? Let me know in the comments. Genuinely, your perspective matters, and I read every single one. If you are not subscribed yet, do it now and turn on notifications, owing to be looking at something significant around Harry's legal situation in the United States and what the next few months could realistically mean for his future there. That video is one you will not want to miss. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.